is Monday, a Monday. It's the Monday. It's the first Monday of February 2025. Welcome to the HEF podcast. That's the podcast of the Home Education Foundation and HEF Connect, which are organizations started by Brenda Dickinson years ago as she fought to protect parents' rights for home education in the state of Florida. And we have sponsors with us to help make that possible and all the other additional things that we try to do to boost our community or keep them informed, help them, advocate for them, and build connections to opportunities beyond the K-12 journey, because it's only one step of getting our children prepared for life that we get them through their educational needs and out into the world. So thank you to our top sponsors, Arete, Fisher Precious Metals, and Brenda. Good day. Good day. I almost said good morning. It's not morning anymore. Yeah, it's been morning all day until just now. So
the classroom that because the disabilities are very severe. But moving from a level 3 to a level 4 for children that need a lot of tutoring, therapies, all that kind of treatment would go from about $10,000 to roughly $20,000. So imagine if a parent had $20,000 to get speech and language and OT, what a difference it could make a child's life. So we have been fighting to try to find a way to do this. And so the proposal that's on the table right now, and it's out there, but you'd have to really know what you're looking for to find it. In the House budget, there is a pot of money set aside for fiddlers. That's FDLRS. Is that FDLRS, which stands for Florida Resource and Diagnostic Learning Resource, I think his last one. Anyway, those are basically parent education programs that are attached to a school district. They may have one for 3 counties in the less populated areas, but one for every district where the population is higher. And so parents can get help from fiddlers if you have a child with a disability. So we're trying, and I found out today, we've been working with DOE. They've had several changeovers in the office that handles special education. It's called the BEES office, the Bureau of Exceptional Education Services, stands for BEES. We've got all of these acronyms in education that are hard to keep up with. But that office has had several turnovers, and so we haven't had anybody that has really been focused on it. But the scholarship school choice office has, behind the scenes, been trying to find a way. And so I understand that they have now conforming language proposed to the budget. So in addition to getting regular bills filed, which you have to have bill sponsors for, you can put money in the budget. We don't generally ask for money with Home Education Foundation because it comes from a different organization. For example, Step Up for Students deals with the appropriation office in the House and Senate to determine cost of what's going into the public schools and how that affects the scholarship programs. That's not something we deal with. They wouldn't listen to us anyway. So you can have a bill. It can be in the budget. The number can be in the budget as a line item, or it can be wrapped into something else. And right now the FESUA is part of the school district budget, so you won't see a separate line item for the FESUA. Then with the budget, you can have language right in the budget that's called proviso language. But if you want it to be more implementing language, which there is an implementing bill, but the conforming bill will conform the law to the budget. So it's very confusing. There are a bunch of different ways that you can get stuff in. But right now, the Department of Education is pushing that on our behalf because the private schools that are in the scholarship programs are having a difficult time getting accurate matrices for their students as well. So there's a coalition of I guess, schools, school associations, and the Home Education Foundation. I've been very vocal about it for homeschoolers. And so we're finally getting some traction after 4 years of working on this issue. Hopefully we'll get it over the finish line this year. It appears that Jason and I are working really hard to find bill sponsors for the bill that we want out there to change some of the issues that are in the scholarship program, i.e. computers for those that are on the PEP program. Jason, help me. My mind just went blank on the other key issues that we're trying to get. You can't hear me?
No, I'm asking if you can hear me. So clearly not.
Yeah, I can hear you better than before.
You can
Okay.
hear me now?
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
The timeline is one of the things we want it to be opened up so that students don't have to apply for the PEP by the February date. That if their scholarship's still available, they can apply at any time, but can be awarded the scholarship later in the summer or year if there's still scholarships available. That's one of the issues, and I think those are primarily we're trying to get HEIPs defined in statute because we've got a lot of challenges with no definition in statute. We've all been working with Step Up for Students as they try to define what it is, but there's no legal definition. So we're trying to get one in statute that would keep some of the programs that suddenly realized they could get money from the state if they were running an HEIP, and these are kind of pop-up programs. We feel like there needs to be a track record before they start getting government money.
Yeah.
Those are the three main issues I can think of. So let me say this. If there are anybody that you know, or anybody that maybe you know, a legislator who still has a bill slot open who would be interested in helping clear up some of the issues that I just mentioned, even somebody whose child has a PEP scholarship or a UA scholarship, if you know them or know someone who does know them, you worked in a campaign, please get in touch with Jason and I. We're kind of in a big time crunch here because the House members can only sponsor 7 bills. So the only other way to get a bill in before a committee is if the committee decided to take it up. And I just learned on this previous call I was on that the House has no appetite for a committee bill. So I don't know whether we'll be able to find a bill sponsor, but we've got a couple of feelers out. We have an appointment tomorrow with a legislator who may consider sponsoring it and maybe still has a bill slot left, but they're approached by a whole lot of people, and they have to decide which bills are really important and which ones they're willing to spend their one bill slot to push that bill. So if you can provide us with some help, one of the ones we're trying to get in touch with is Representative Gerwig. She's in Green Acres, which is in Palm Beach County. We've reached out to her, but we haven't gotten any response back from her office, so we'll keep trying. But she's new, and we're hoping that she might be willing to sponsor our bill.
Yeah. Can you hear me better now? I've tried
Yes.
so many things. Okay.
Yes, very good, loud and clear.
Good grief. Okay. I was about ready to throw, but you guys were about to see some crazy violence toward technological devices here.
I hope the people in the chat can hear you better, because I saw some comments coming in that they were having trouble hearing just you.
I'll keep an eye on it. Yeah. I apologize. I'll be a little louder or whatever I can do without yelling at you. I do have the language up for the Florida Diagnostic Learning Resources that you were talking about. They're still saying they can barely hear me. Well, anyway, the language is there. It has been proposed. So I don't know where you want to go with all of this because I can't speak. But if you want to talk about the application window, did you mention how many the applications opened February 1st for the scholarships? Did you mention how many had applied already?
120,000, but they didn't give a breakdown as to whether those were EO scholarships for private schools or whether those were PEP scholarships. They were going to get those numbers later, but there's been a lot of activity over the weekend.
Yeah, they're probably still sorting
as far
through
as application.
The application process lumps all the FTC scholarships together into one, and then I don't know, it's kind of like a streamlined process, and then you check if you want PEP as part of the process. So I would imagine they're probably still trying to compile their statistics. But the site was a little bit laggy over the weekend, which I saw as a good sign that there were probably a lot of people on there trying to apply. So
yeah, and so I just pulled up the statutes to make reference of the application window for PEP in particular, because this is something that not a lot of homeschool families are familiar with. It's been there, but it hasn't been an issue because it wasn't yet 2025-26, and now that it is, the application window is February 1st to April 30th. So if you do know someone who is, and that's here in the statute for both new applications as well as renewals, it's 1002.3956E1 and 2. What we are trying to adjust this window to be more in alignment with the traditional history of homeschooling, because we know that a lot of homeschooling families or parents aren't necessarily planning and thinking about that for the August upcoming time right this moment in terms of being aware of application windows. It doesn't necessarily fall in alignment with homeschooling traditions and history. So just want to make sure that families are aware of that. If it is something that you're wanting to try or participate in, make sure that you understand that's the window. It is something we would like to see adjusted just in the future, but I think after a couple of years, once people realize that that's the way that it goes, that might change. But
yeah, also just another point, if you look at the end of number 2 here, the process must require that parents confirm that the scholarship is being renewed or declined by May 31st. So Step Up has sent some communication out about this, that there's going to be a second step to the process. So you'll apply, then you'll get an email according to Step Up, what they've sent out so far. You should look for an email saying you've been awarded, and now you have to officially confirm whether you're accepting or declining. So don't forget that second step, because that is a step in the process now that needs to be completed, in addition to, the student learning plan and all the other things that we had to do last year. So.
Mm-hmm.
So when in the process, Crystal, does the parents need to fill out that student learning plan in order to get the scholarship finalized for their child?
They haven't given a deadline for that yet. It's not part of the original application, but once you've been awarded, then there's usually, and at least last year, they gave a time frame by which it had to be completed, or you would lose, you would no longer be eligible for the scholarship. So that, that's a good thing to point out. Watch out once you've been awarded and you've officially accepted, then also watch for the communications about the time frame for getting that student learning plan in. Last year, there was an issue where if you did it too early, their system didn't catch it because it was still this school year and they hadn't opened the student learning plans for next school year yet. So there's going to be a time frame where they're going to probably open the ability to create a student learning plan for the upcoming school year. So just keep an eye out for that.
And for those families that are new, and I can't see who we've got on the call today, but if somebody is interested in applying for the scholarship, give them sort of a thumbnail of what they have to fill out in that student learning plan, because it's not, a lot of people hear those words and I think they think it's state trying to tell you what you have to teach your children.
Oh, sorry. I was answering a question in the comments. Yeah. So the student learning plan is what you're wanting me to kind of explain.
Yes.
Yeah. It is not very specific. So it's just going to ask for the broad strokes. And even on the student learning plan itself, it says, this does not in any way, I don't know the exact wording, but it basically says that the student learning plan is not dictating how you can spend your funds. You can change it at any time. So it's really just for them to have some level of accountability that the parent has thought about how they're planning to spend the scholarship. And it's just a checklist of like, here are the main subjects we're planning to cover. And then you can go more detailed if you want to, but the more detailed part, they say specifically that it's for the parents' reference. Like if you want to be able to track your students' progress on particular subjects, there's like an option where you could use it for that. I just do the broad strokes and you can update it at any point in the year if you change it. But because it's so generic, there probably won't be much of a need to. You choose like main subjects and then some secondary subjects like character building, time management, that kind of stuff. There's a checklist for those as well, and you can check a couple of those things. So it's nothing to stress over. They're not making you submit lesson plans or anything super detailed. And you can change it at any point if you decide later in the year that you want to emphasize something different than what you originally put in. So they're not using it as a method of control. They just want that basic accountability of knowing that you've put some thought into how you're planning to use the funds. Kim Hannon says, like glue with the learning plan, less is more. Yes, I agree. You can just do the basic version and not stress over it. And that way you don't have to worry about going in and updating and changing anything later.
When they first put this out, you could click in to get more detail, and they put in a lot of stuff that is used in the public schools, benchmarks and whatever's supposed to be taught at whatever grade, and a whole bunch of detailed stuff that parents don't have to utilize. They said they put that in there as information and a help if parents wanted it.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of links that are like, additional information. And to someone who hasn't been through the process before, that could look scary because it looks like there's all of this extra stuff. But all of that is supposedly just for your reference, and you don't have to go through any of that or use any of that unless you just want to. The application process itself, by the way, is pretty simple now. Now that they've streamlined it, I went through it on Saturday. and it was straightforward. Just make sure if you are doing PEP, there is a checkbox for that. Do not miss the checkbox because you're applying under FTC and you have to check the little box that you're planning to use PEP. So just the other thing is, I saw this happening to a few parents in the Facebook groups. There's a pop-up that warns you of this, but I guess it could be easy to overlook if you see a pop-up and just close it. You have to add all the students first before you actually do the application. So you have to click onto the students tab. If you're adding a new student that wasn't on a scholarship the previous year, you need to add them into your account first, because when you start the application process, it's going to pop up your existing students and ask you to check the ones you're applying for. Renewals and new students all go together on the same application. You need to check every student that you're applying for, whether it's renewal or new. So you need to add the students first and then go into the application, check everybody. I saw some parents that tried to do the renewal application and then create a new application for any new student, and the system wouldn't let them because you're supposed to do them all in one application. So just be aware of that and make sure that you're creating the students first. And yes, as Kim said, click all the students you're applying for any scholarship at all for on one application, and then the application will walk you through the step of specifying which scholarship is for which student and all of that additional information.
Even the UA students are supposed to be on the same application?
There's a different application. If I'm remembering correctly, the apply button, the FTC is one apply button and the FES is a separate apply button. But you still need to have added all your students into the system before you go through the application process.
So this year they're adding another 40,000 students. So we should be up to 100,000 scholarships available for PEP students this year.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I think because of the crunched timeline window, Step Up is a little bit nervous that they aren't going to get all the people in that time frame. So spread the word, like Jason said. If you know anybody who is planning to apply for the scholarship, make sure they're aware that the deadline to apply is April 30th. The May 31st deadline is for confirming once you've been awarded. The application closes on April 30th.
And unfortunately, that number is in statute, so I'm not sure that the scholarship funding organizations have the authority to go beyond that in accepting applications.
Yeah. Kim Hannon just pointed this out in the chat, but in case someone hasn't seen it, if you have PEP students and UA students, you will need the UA student number for the siblings, because the application asks you, when you're applying for PEP, they ask if the student has siblings on the UA scholarship, and then you have to put in their student number. So you just, when you're gathering all your information to have for the applications, you're going to need, if it's a new student, you're going to need a birth certificate. If it's not a new student, you're going to need social security numbers. You'll need your proof of residency, but you'll also need the UA student numbers if you have any students on the UA scholarship. Delene asked, for renewal students, the testing submission will be required after being awarded/renewed. Do we have a general idea of when? I don't think Step Up has announced the exact deadline for that yet, but it is not required at the time of application. They're going to require it later, probably closer to the end of the typical school year. If they follow the pattern of last year, they opened it up to submit test results over the summer because they knew that parents were, finishing up their school years. So I would just keep an eye out for that. They're not going to ask for that at your renewal, but you will need to have it so that when they do ask for it, you can submit it. think
So
no more
are we there?
questions have come in. So
Are there any more questions, I think, from the
not that I see. I'm scrolling back up. I don't think so.
okay. We'll give it a second and see. Sometimes there's a little bit of a delay. I don't want to necessarily jump and then have to interrupt what comes next with this.
Right.
I might say that if you have a child that's being affected by the lack of a computer to do their schoolwork, and 4 kids are having to share one adult's computer, makes it difficult, you could call your legislators and tell them that this is a very important issue for your student to just be allowed to buy more than, well, you can't buy any computers right now.
Mm-hmm.
You might even touch base with the governor's office if you know somebody in the governor's office in the education part, or just call the governor's office and tell them that's very important that they allow you to spend your scholarship money on a digital device.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point, because obviously this is something that we are advocating for this year, but having those parent voices that they've already heard whenever Jason and Brenda go into conversations with them is super, super helpful, because it will already be on their radar and they'll be like, oh yeah, I've been hearing from my constituents about that. And it won't be something new that Jason and Brenda are having to convince them is a need. So that's super helpful.
It's always helpful when a constituent calls.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that lives in their district, they tend to listen to them more. So if you're interested in the issue, then call the person that represents you in the Florida House, not Congress. So many people get confused in terms of who to call. We deal with Florida legislature, and those members can be found on the online Sunshine website, and you can hone in on who your representative is. We have a link, I believe, on our website to that information. And so you can call. So if you call Congress, it's not, they're not going to have a clue what you're talking about. The other thing is, looking for specific issues that, for example, what we've mentioned with the UA, call the Speaker of the House office. If you live in the Miami area, he's from Miami-Dade. I don't know exactly where, but he has indicated that education issues are not his priority this year. That doesn't keep them from becoming a priority if it's a priority for his constituent, but he's just not engaged in that area. So that's another person that you can call if you are interested in any of the changes that we've talked about. We'll do our best on this end, but it's looking challenging to try to get a bill in this session. So we need help. If it's important to you, then you need to help us.
Yeah, and this should not be a brand new issue to some of the representatives, because I know a lot of you reached out to them last year. And we just didn't, because of what was happening with 1403, that issue kind of got sidelined because we were trying to prevent them restricting it even further, much less expanding what's offered.
Right.
But a lot of the representatives have heard from their constituents last year, so they need the reminder that this is still important and this is still something that hasn't been addressed. And the need for digital devices is still there.
And we talked about on our last podcast about the articles that were written. There probably will be more articles written about the PEP. So it's
Yep.
really important that you get in touch with your legislative staff, and ask for who is handling the education issues, and tell them how much the scholarship is meant to your family. But we'd love to have that on video so that we can share it, because we're trying to combat the media and the teachers union that hate these scholarships. So while we didn't push for these scholarships to be coming to home education families, we've done our dead level best to make sure they are as free of regulations and restrictions for those people that choose to use them. And we keep a handle on that, because if they're going to provide these for homeschoolers, we don't want that to creep into oversight on home education programs if you choose not to take a scholarship. So there's a fine line, and we're trying to hold the line so that any regulation that comes on the scholarships won't spill over onto the home education law that many people are still educating their children under.
Mm-hmm.
So your participation is really important to help us.
Absolutely. Vicky says that Senator Danny Burgess is a homeschooler dad receiving the scholarships. He's frustrated with the issues we're experiencing, and he'll be a great advocate. I hope so. I would, if you have an in with him to speak with him about some of them. I see that he filed a bill regarding some changes to Bright Futures. I've got that on my docket to read through today and see, how that impacts home education, private schools, etc. Just to be aware. I think I've got about one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, at least 9 bills that I'm gonna have to comb through and make sure, and they touch everything from child care to um, swimming pools and stuff like that, where they're flagging things about a home that it might impact a home in some way, or a family in a home from doing certain thing, or having children around, etc. There's a lot of bills that we look at just to make sure that they don't end up having a peripheral um, impact on home education in a negative way as well. So I'll be combing through a lot of those today to kind of narrow that list. I was talking with one of the moms last week about how important it is to stay up to date on the issues. Vicky, absolutely. I would love to, and I would be happy to join you in that meeting. So if you can put that together and just let me know. My email, I'm going to type it in for you. It goes straight into our database, but that's a great way to connect us up. I remember I met him last year at the homeschool day at the Capitol, but I don't know if he'll remember running into me, but I would love to connect and talk about some of what's important, especially if he's interested in working on something about it. But the importance of staying up to date on things, and as the this last 2 weeks really have just been a dumpster fire, if that's fair, like an absolute tornado of deals, and it's the sad part is watching the issues that are really, really important to our community become tertiary at best, because they don't take up headline news until they do, and then they're being blasted like the PEP program, and nobody's up to speed or read in on what's really going on in the programs, much to less like the article that we covered last week. Um, the expenditures that people are upset about make up a very, very small fraction. Uh, I was talking with Step Up for Students about maybe making a graph that shows, like, a bar graph of all the expenditures that parents do make, and their educational benefits, and then show the ones on the graph where the media talk about and blast parents for, um, because it's a very, very very small amount. The issues that they're blowing out of proportion are very, very small. People don't always know this. And so then keeping up with and keeping tabs on what's going on and who says what person in the legislature is doing this, and then of course the complete uh, distraction, I would say, of the Trump Act, and what's going on in the legislature between the governor and the legislator kind of takes over, and it becomes kind of like an all-consuming attention thing. And if you stop watching it even for a second, a couple of hours later when you pick up, you have no idea what's going on anymore, and you're completely left out. So we were talking about the very real need for an accurate source of information parents can go to and get the bullet points or the what's important, especially to them as home education, so that they can know, they can stay up to date and know. And that ultimately is what we intended for our live forum to be. I know that it's really easy to use the Facebook groups because you're already on Facebook in a lot of ways, but Facebook's popularity is not, it's kind of dwindling down, especially among the younger crowd. We don't allow our children on social media in general, but as a demographic breakdown, Facebook is not as popular among the teen to 20 somethings. It's far more popular among the older generation. TikTok, YouTube, somewhat Instagram are a little bit more popular among that demographic. So now people are a bit more fractured online. I'm going somewhere with this. People are a bit more fractured online in the ways that they interact, and they get their information, and it can be difficult to know where is the best place to put something. So rather than going all in on any particular social media platform, we are going to be putting a lot of our emphasis for the accurate information that we share in both our blog and our forum, so that parents can stay up to date there. We'll do our best to make them as shareable as possible in any of the social media platforms. But just as a way of kind of letting you all know where we are, where we can be found, and the easiest ways to share the information, that is probably it. I would like for us to be able to put out more content on a regular basis and take the podcasts that we do and break them down into smaller sections that can be more easily digested. As an example, like Joe Rogan has a podcast and it's maybe 2.5 hours long. I don't sit and listen to the whole podcast. I think he's a cool guy, but I'm not listening to the whole podcast. I don't have time for that. So I rely on some of those smaller snippets to go, oh, well, that was an interesting section of a conversation, and it's germane to something else I was thinking about or researching over here, or and I'll fit it in where I can. And I'm aware that that's kind of a way that people in general consume social media. So we'd like to be able to do that. We are offering an internship at HEF Connect for if you have a student, or if you know someone who has a student who's interested in learning about marketing principles. If they're interested in learning about how to use social media from a business perspective, if they have a penchant for anything that's political, or if they're just interested, it'll be heavy research, and there'll be a heavy writing component to it, and I'll be teaching them kind of how to use some of the technology tools, since marketing is my day job. I'll teach them how to use some of the tools to kind of fill a need that we have for volunteers, and it will also allow them to satisfy the need for Bright Futures hours. And I do have a private sponsor who's willing to sponsor 2 internships that would be paid internships. So something to think about and spread the word on. If I can find 2 good volunteers that are ready, then I can go back to that sponsor and let them know that I have found candidates. So use this video and spread the word. There's quite a bit of a help that we do need to do. I can structure it for them and provide them feedback and guidance and structure. But I do need a couple of extra pair of hands in order to kind of keep up with the vision and goals of what we're trying to do and the kind of informative and useful content that we're trying to put out there. I don't have anything else to add on that. Go ahead.
What are you looking for? Because you would not want me to volunteer for
That's
that
right.
position.
Right. That's right. I would need, okay, so what I'm looking for is someone who has an interest in writing and video, so that I can get them to take some of the videos that we make and supplement writing to them. We'll pull the transcripts from them, and I need them to be able to kind of cut video down
Yeah,
and
so
to
they
be able
should
to,
be somewhat tech savvy.
Yeah. Yes,
yeah,
that was the important part I wanted to get to.
you're getting there. Yeah,
How much do they need to have experience
yeah.
in, just social media and all that kind of stuff?
I have access to the tools, and I can extend that access. I can add them on as team members to the platforms and tools that we use. They are cloud based, so they can work remotely. They don't have to be in Tallahassee to do this, but they will know how. They will need to know how to use and operate a computer. Um, they'll need to be fairly decent at typing because there is a generating the content does have a bit of a heavy workload. I can teach them how to ethically and accurately use AI to uh, take some of the tedious stuff out of things, but I'll also be overseeing it, so we won't be violating any copyright issues or anything like that. But I'll teach them how to judiciously use AI to take care of some of those tedious tasks because it can be very useful when harnessed properly. There's a lot of fun things that they'll be able to kind of learn through the internship, but they will have to want to do video work and wants to do writing, and it will be very research heavy because I'll have certain things that I want to know. Um, are people writing articles about this, and teach them how to look in certain places online and take multiple sources and kind of pull a summary from multiple sources and be able to cite them and uh, put articles together from that. So,
Yeah. While we're
does that
talking,
answer your question?
while we're kind of talking about video,
Mm-hmm.
we had another entry for the Tell Your Story project come in over the weekend. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you to the parent who submitted 2 videos, I think, for that.
Yay.
And please, the rest of you, if you haven't submitted one yet, we are definitely still looking for those and
Yes.
would love to have more submissions. So
Yes. And if the submissions for that really kick up, the intern can help us get those posted up as well. So learning how to get things like that up and live and published is there's all kinds of fun things I can teach them. A super important tool for kids to know how to use well and ethically. Yay. Yes, absolutely. All right. I think that's it. I'm glad my mic started working again. Maybe you're not. I don't have anything else to add as of right now. Brenda, do you?
I don't.
I think it's time for us to get back to work and keep plotting and strategizing. So, with that, unless there's any other questions, and I don't see any coming through on the comments here, I'm gonna go ahead and start winding us down. We'll say a special thank you once again to our top sponsors and our title sponsor, Arete and Fisher Precious Metals. We thank you for your support, being with us, and also we thank all of the families that are with us and sharing our content, and then those who go beyond that and they show financial support. We see you. I see the drops coming in all of the time, and it really warms my heart and lets me know that you know you're with us, and we really appreciate you being with us. Without any further ado, thank you for watching. We do go live Mondays at noon, and you can check back for any other updates that are not on the live stream podcast. You can check out our forum at flhef.org/forum, and we'll see you guys next week.